What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Cubby Perspective. My name is Andrew, and I'm a podcast for the fans and by the fans. The Chicago Cubs take on the Philadelphia Phillies at 1:20 at Wrigley Field, so don't miss the action. Taijuan Walker will be going on the bump for the Philadelphia Phillies. Taijuan Walker is 1-1 with a 2.29 ERA this season with 16 strikeouts. So he is having a good year. But a lot of pitchers were having a good year up until, they met the Cubs. So we're just going to have to wait and see how Taijuan Walker does against the best offense in baseball. On the other side of the mound, on our side of the mound, we have Colin Ray going. Colin Ray is 0-0 this year, 1.32 ERA with 12 strikeouts. Everyone knows Colin Ray has been effective this year, but he's simply not going deep into ball games. And I wouldn't expect Colin Ray to go deep into ball games unless he's really on his game that day. So expect another 4-5 innings out of Colin Ray today of good baseball, locating his pitches on command, as well as keeping hitters off balance, because Colin Ray does a good job of doing that. He's a very good professional and veteran presence on this pitching staff. The Chicago Cubs starting lineup looks as Ian Happ starting off with the leadoff spot, Kyle Tucker in the 2-hole, Seiya Suzuki 3, Michael Busch 4, Swanson 5, Nico Horner 6, Pico Armstrong 7, Carson Kelly 8, as well as John Birdie at 9 playing third base. The Cubs still need a third baseman. Maybe they go out there and get Ryan McMahon at some point this year. Ryan McMahon has not been playing well for the Rockies for obvious reasons. I feel like it's kind of hard to be good on that team, because how bad they are. But Ryan McMahon is a pretty consistent hitter in this league. His last 5 out of 6 seasons, he has hit over 20 homers, drove in over 70 RBIs. So Ryan McMahon is a pretty decent hitter, there. Batting to a 240 average on a consistent basis with a little over a 300 batting average. Hey, he also brings good defense to the field. So if the Cubs could have a, consistent 20 homer threat at third base as well as play good defense, that's a win for us. And he's going to be cheap. So he's not going to break the bank really. And we're not going to have to give up premier prospects to go out and get him. So I think Ryan McMahon should fill that spot at third base. Seiya Suzuki is also back in the lineup after dealing with wrist soreness or a minor wrist injury. Maybe he was just feeling fatigued and needed a day off or whatnot, but glad to see him back in that starting lineup because the Cubs need him. Seiya Suzuki batting behind Kyle Tucker is such a lethal threat because, they're both very good professional hitters in this league and they're both consistently good. So the Cubs need Seiya Suzuki in this lineup to keep pushing the Cubs further and further away from our ops down in the NL Central, such as the Brewers. The Brewers are coming off 2 losses. They just lost two in a row, so that's good. So now the Cubs sit at, I believe, 3.5 games above them in the NL Central. So hopefully the Cubs can keep rolling and get a nice win today, which I fully expect them to against the Phillies. On the other side, we got the Philadelphia Phillies starting lineup. So let's go over it. Bryson Stott batting leadoff, Trey Turner 2, Bryce Harper 3, Kyle Schwarber 4. Miss you, Kyle. We should have never gotten rid of you personally, but I feel like it all worked out in the end. Number 5, Nicholas Castellanos. Let's hope there's not some worldly disaster, because if so, we all know Nicholas Castellanos is gonna go off today against Colin Ray. 6, Max Kepler. 7, JT Realmuto. He has a cannon, behind the dish, so I wouldn't really expect the Cubs to be, stealing as many bags as they were, right, against the Dodgers or other teams. Maybe you send guys like PCA where you feel comfortable sending them because you know that they could steal a base. But JT Realmuto is one of the premier catchers behind the dish and throws runners out at a pretty good clip. So, we're just going to have to wait and see what Quinn Berry and Craig Counsell do with the run game, really. Alec Bohm batting 8. Alec Bohm has been awful this year. He's been absolutely terrible. So hopefully that continues on in this series and he doesn't come out of his shell, because we all know Alec Bohm is a pretty good hitter in this league. But there's just something in the water this year where hitters such as Jock Peterson and Alec Bohm are just simply not doing well. They're not seeing the ball well. So like I said, hopefully this continues through this series. And number 9, Johan Rojas, the center fielder. It's a pretty good lineup. Obviously, that's a very top-heavy lineup with, Harper, Turner, Castellanos, as well as Schwarber. And who else am I missing? Bryson Stott. That's a pretty good, 5-punch right there. If Colin Ray can contain them, keep them off balance, keep their timing off, throw effective strikes, right? Don't like when you throw a waste pitch, don't waste a pitch. So if it's an 0-2 count, you don't want to like completely throw the ball outside the zone. You still want to get it relatively close to where the batters will chase. So look for Colin Ray to really locate his pitches well today because he's going to have to against talented teams such as the Philadelphia Phillies. The Cubs had been dealing with the injury bug lately. Javier Assad was scheduled to be back fairly soon. He was ramping up his activities down in AAA as well as Arizona. He was coming off that oblique injury from spring training, but unfortunately, yesterday's ball game, Javier Assad retweaked his oblique injury, and he is going to be sidelined for probably another month or two. Unfortunately, oblique injuries are just really tragic because you don't really know if you're healthy or not. You just kind of got to go test the waters out, and it's such an easy injury to re-aggravate, and that's what happened with Javier Assad. So hopefully Javier Assad can get healthy soon and be back with the squad at some point this year. Javier Assad pitched overall pretty decent for the Cubs coming out of the rotation last year. 3.74 ERA with about 140 innings pitched or so. So he was pretty effective for the Cubs when he pitched. Now, he had control issues, right? He walked a lot of batters, his strikeouts. He doesn't strike out enough people, but nonetheless, he was inducing a lot of weak ground balls, right? A lot of double plays and getting out a lot of jams, excuse me. Our second injury, which is not as serious, but still a pretty crazy kind of thing, in my opinion. Porter Hodge, Porter Hodge isn't injured, but Porter Hodge closed out the last game against the Dodgers because Ryan Presley was dealing with some sort of like freak leg thing going on. Ryan Presley actually had to go get his right leg drained because there was a lot of fluid buildup in his right leg. I've never heard of that. I don't know why that would happen, but hopefully Ryan Presley's okay, and Craig Counsell fully expects him to be our closer for this series against the Phillies. Hopefully that doesn't throw off Ryan Presley's game because he has been absolutely electric for the Cubs. He's been lights out. Like 8 consecutive scoreless starts, numerous strikeouts. He's limiting those walks. He's doing a really good job of attacking that strike zone against the Phillies. So it would be a real shame if Ryan Presley kind of, goes away from how he's been playing because of this fluid buildup in his legs. So hopefully he's okay. The Cubs do sit at 16-10, which is first place in the NL Central. The Milwaukee Brewers are 13-13 in second place, 3 games behind the Cubs. Hopefully the Cubs can continue winning. Hopefully the Brewers can continue losing. I'm actually going to the Cubs Brewers game on May 3rd with a bunch of my buddies. We're going to be tailgating. We're going to be making some noise. So expect some good content there because we are going to make some noise there. We're not going to go ahead and do what the Dodgers did because that's just flat out disrespectful. But I mean, and Brewer Stadium, aka American Family Field or whatever now, it's so stupid. It should have been kept Miller Park, in my opinion. But we are gonna go out there, we are gonna tailgate, we are gonna make some noise, we are gonna have a good time, drink some beer, eat a lot of good food. So, like I said, stay tuned for all of that footage. My 2 picks to click in this ball game are going to be Kyle Tucker as well as PCA. I have no reason not to pick PCA, and quite frankly, I feel like a fool if I didn't pick PCA considering how good he's been. I talked about how good PCA has been in my previous video. So if you guys are curious, go to my last episode and watch how good PCA has been playing because he's been playing absolutely electric. He's almost getting to the point where he's one of the most valuable players in the league at the moment, which is kind of crazy to consider, right? Because it felt like not too long ago PCA couldn't, even touch the ball, but now he's just like hitting the ball every single time he swings the bat. So hopefully PCA can continue this. I have no reason to believe he will not keep going with his hot stretch. I believe PCA is going to have a pretty good day today. You are going to see a couple stolen bases out of him. You are going to see him at least hit a double, drive in some of those runs. Dansby Swanson's been swinging the bat better. Dansby Swanson has ditched the torpedo bat, and after he did that, now he's starting to hit kind of again. Hopefully that lasts because the Cubs are going to need Dansby Swanson throughout the duration of the season, not just for defense, but as well as his offense come playoff time. Because we all know how tough it is to actually go out there, and win playoff games. And it's a whole team effort at that point, right? So look for Dansby Swanson to get on base today, as well as Nico Horner. PCA is going to drive him in. PCA is going to be creeping his way up that lineup soon. I guarantee it. You simply do not sit at the seventh hole for that long when you're producing at the rate you are. Like I said, I believe Craig Counsell is keeping him in that seventh hole just because he doesn't really want to screw with his game that much, right? He doesn't want to put too much pressure on him too fast because jumping from seventh all the way to, let's say, 5 or 4, yeah, that is a big difference. And you are going to be pitched differently and whatnot. So, like I said, expect PCA to stay in that seventh hole for a little bit longer. Expect him to keep raking because I don't see how he's going to go on a cold stretch with how he's been swinging the bat. So PCA and Kyle Tucker are my picks to click. I feel like I really don't have to talk about Kyle Tucker that much. Kyle Tucker, like I told you guys numerous times before, he's so good. He's such a professional. He's one of the league. He's a top 5 player in the league. And I'd argue anyone that says he's not a top 5 player in this league. He's pretty much a better version of Juan Soto. I said it. I said it. That's the second time I said it, but I said it. If someone were to walk up to me right now and say, hey, you can choose between Juan Soto right now or Kyle Tucker right now, who are you going with and why? Number one, I'm going with Kyle Tucker all day. All day. Juan Soto's bat is very good, but Kyle Tucker's bat is also extremely good. And Kyle Tucker actually steals bags. He actually plays very good defense in right field where Juan Soto doesn't really run. He's a slow player, plays crappy defense. So no thank you. I'm taking Kyle Tucker all day of the week. Hopefully, Kyle Tucker doesn't get $760 million. That's just ludicrous to me. Like he's more than deserving if that's what Juan Soto got, because he's just as good as Juan Soto. But $765 million for a player, that's just unbelievable. But regardless, get it done, Jed Hoyer, and get it done, Tom Ricketts. I actually heard that the Cubs are trying to extend Jed Hoyer at the moment. Why? Why are you trying to extend Jed Hoyer when Kyle Tucker's not been re-signed? Jed Hoyer's entire tenure with the Cubs will be a colossal failure if Kyle Tucker ends up leaving. And I'm not going to be the only one saying that. You're going to be hearing that around the entire league by professionals, on the network, around the fans, everywhere. So instead of getting your contract done, worry about your contract after Kyle Tucker gets extended. Just some thoughts. So Tucker and PCA are my picks to click. I think the Cubs do end up winning this ball game today. I think it's going to be another nail biter. Quite frankly, the Phillies have a really good lineup. The Cubs bullpen is definitely shaky, so we don't know what they're going to do on any given basis. So I think the Cubs win the ball game today at 6-4 or at least 6-5. I think it's going to be two or a 1-run game. So you guys make your decision on what the end result of the game is, and that's pretty much it. So that wraps up the Chicago Cubs preview against the Phillies today. So if you no longer want to listen, then I don't blame you, and you guys can go ahead and shut this video off. But I watched the draft last night for the Chicago Bears, and I kind of just want to get your guys' opinions on, how do you feel about who we picked at number 10? Social media is kind of up in flames right now. They're going with yes and no. Ben Johnson, Ryan Poles, and Kevin Warner are really liking the pick. Supposedly, this tight end is going to be a really good tight end for the league. You saw what Ben Johnson did with Sam Laporta with Detroit. So, I don't know. I was just kind of confused. I really wanted a running back. I really wanted an offensive tackle. So it didn't happen, but we got a tight end now with Cole Kmet. So we'll see how that works. But as always, keep the faith, go Cubs, and I am the Cubby Perspective. Thank you.